Welcome to ACC Nation. That's Will Ogen and I'm Jim Quist. And let's get into some ACC sports news before we look at basketball. NC State wrestling is number 2 in the nation in the latest NWCA Top 25. ACC men's soccer, they earned 9 bids, 6 seeds in the NCAA championship. Notre Dame, North Carolina, Virginia, Clemson, Wake Forest, Duke, Louisville, Pitt, and Syracuse all in there. 3 teams from ACC field hockey are in the semifinals. North Carolina and Virginia face off, and Duke goes head-to-head with Northwestern. ACC Women's NCAA Soccer Championship, it's FSU, UNC, Notre Dame, Pitt, and Clemson, and they are in second-round action. There are 12 ACC cross-country teams that will compete in the NCAA championships. That's being held at UVA. 6 teams for women, 2 men earned automatic spots, plus 6 at-large teams earned a spot, in addition to 4 individuals from the ACC who will be competing. Let's take a look at basketball. The AP Men's Top 25 and the AP Women's Top 25. We'll start with the men first, and then we'll take a look at the women. Then we'll talk a little bit about the games that are going on. The top 5 men, Kansas, Purdue, Arizona, Marquette, and UConn. At number 9, it's Duke. At number 12, Miami. And at number 20, it's North Carolina. Receiving votes at number 27, it's Virginia. And at number 42, Clemson. Over on the women's side, the top 25, no surprise here, South Carolina is number 1, number 2, Iowa, number 3, UCLA, number 4, Utah, and number 5, Colorado. Guess who's not in that top 5 anymore? And we'll tell you who in just a moment. At number 9, it's Virginia Tech. Number 12, Florida State. Number 14, it's NC State, and there's the reason why that other team is not in the top 5. Number 16, Notre Dame. Number 17, North Carolina. Number 19, Louisville. It just keeps going, folks. And receiving votes, it's number 30, Duke, and number 32, Miami. So let's take a look at the men's first and some of the action that we've seen so far. No surprise, I guess, that Duke got bumped here. I wasn't surprised by that. It's an early season loss, and I don't see where it makes that much difference in the grand scheme of things. But I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I get it, but like I don't. Yeah, I think it. But I said I think that game says a lot more about Arizona personally. Taking them down that much, I get it because it's an early season loss, but it's I give them credit for playing a game like that in that situation, because
Definitely
Coach K sure as hell would never do that. If you get a team from Arizona to come to Cameron, it's Northern Arizona most likely. So yeah, that's. So I definitely give John Shire credit for playing that game, but yeah, it was a competitive game though. It's what you wanted out of it.
Exactly. And I think that these are the types of wins and losses that early in the season are going to make a big difference on the other end when we get into March. And it won't be too much longer before we talk with our buddy Jason with the Big Underdog Bracketology and get his thoughts on that. In fact, I was thinking about him just the other day about it's about time that we got him on and started talking about the impact of games such as this Duke and Arizona matchup. At number 12, Miami. I keep, and you brought this up, your question about the loss of personnel, specific personnel that would have an impact on the Canes. And it stuck with me. And I kept thinking to myself, I'm going to really be watching for this in all of these games that are coming up. So far, I haven't seen anything that bothers me, but yeah,
Yeah,
good.
again, it's NJIT, UCF, and FIU, and I mean they got a game from FIU. I mean, FIU was up. I think they got to double digits on them at one point, in the early in the second half of the game, but they came back and went on a big run to pull away. But I do, I mean, again, these are three games. We're not learning much about Miami right now. We're going to find more about them here in the coming days. I don't know. Georgia's not a big test for them, but like at Kentucky when they put in the ACC SEC challenge later in the month, yeah, definitely we can talk about it then. Um, but then yeah, then they have a couple. They have a couple games, that might be competitive down the road. And they play Colorado in the middle of December, but for the most part, we're not going to know a whole lot about them until we get into conference play because they we saw it's like some things about this team. There a lot of people thought Wooga Poplar would be a big, a guy who stepped up big. He's shooting 70% from three right now. Yeah, that's gonna regress at some point.
Yeah, it won't stay there. And for the sake of his of the opponents, I hope it doesn't. That's
Yeah.
team killer. Yeah, I I look at them and I think to myself, Isaiah Wong made such a big impression on so many people watching this team, and really made things work. And I really want to see somebody step into his shoes and deliver the same sort of, I mean, and it's asking too much really this early. But again, that FIU game, to me, it was so close, Will, that it made me a little concerned. But everybody has at the beginning of the season, it's sort of like, okay, we're going to have games that are going to be throwaways. And
Hmm.
I just sort of look at that as a throwaway game. If they have any more like that over the next couple of weeks, yeah, I would say it's time to run the red flag up real quick and say, are they deserving of being a number 12 rank in the top 25?
Yeah. Yeah,
See,
for right now, I would you don't punish them for beating FIU by six. You punish them if they lose to Georgia on their next game, for example.
yeah, that would be a black mark, and that's something they can't afford to do. As said earlier about Duke and Arizona, that is a big game. That's a plus for both of those teams going into March. Those are the types of games that carry over. Whether you win or lose doesn't make any difference. But if you lose to people who you're not supposed to be and who are not ranked early in the season, then that stuff comes back to haunt you. So you can't afford to do that.
Right.
Number 20, North Carolina. So far, again, I don't know that we have enough to really look at here to get a good impression as to what this team is all about yet. And that concerns me a little bit because I'm looking back at the last 2 years and I'm thinking to myself, every time I got to a point where I started to think I knew what this team was about and what they could do, and then they fell flat on their face. And
Mhm.
I've never been able to figure out the reasoning behind that. And I watched, I've watched and rewatched those games, and it's just like I can't quite grasp what it is that's not clicking in those games in the past. But I am looking for some trend here now to see if there's something similar to that going on early, and I hope there's not.
Yeah, like you said, it's really hard to know what to think of North Carolina right now just because of who they played. Radford, they gave them a game for a while, but UNC pulled away in the end. Lehigh was not competitive. But again, you look, they're not very good teams. They're not going to get tested till the end of the month when they take on Tennessee, and then follow up within less than a week with UConn and then Kentucky. They're going to be really challenged here over the next few weeks, and we're going to start getting a better idea what this UNC team is. There have been some positives. I think they've done some good, but I think the shots are the shot selection is a little bit better because you don't have Caleb Love chucking, YOLO ball type shots all the time, and there's more movement on offense. I think that's obviously a good thing. But we'll see what happens when they get into these more competitive teams.
It's 3 Mile Island shots, is what those things are.
Because you shot them from 3 miles away.
Well, among other things.
Yeah.
All right. Receiving votes at number 27, it's Virginia. And Virginia's slowly but surely starting to show us a little bit about who and what they're about, and what they're capable of. Is it a surprise to you that Tony Bennett is using a first year as effectively as he has in his big man?
Yeah, a little bit. I don't follow recruiting super closely. I just see the names and whatnot. But what Blake Buchanan did, like a lot of the credit's going to go to Reese Beekman and Ryan Dunn for their efforts defensively, and that went over Florida. But I don't think they win that game without Blake Buchanan because he was a big force inside, just being tall basically. Florida has a lot of height.
Yes.
That can be a problem for it's going to be a problem for teams down the road. And they did a really good job of addressing it with Buchanan, who, and they say I think he only had like one foul in the game, and that was really critical to the game, to the win. And then obviously they followed it up as we record tonight. They just beat North Carolina A&T by 29. The game that wasn't even that close. Virginia was up well into the 30s, and then sat out. A lot of their big names didn't play much in the second half. And we'll see. Virginia will get tested a little more, obviously, besides the Florida game. They play Wisconsin, who actually got drubbed by Providence tonight as we record, and then Texas A&M on the 29th in Charlottesville for the ACC SEC Challenge, which we'll see how much of that game Corey Alexander tries to take over.
Can I just say one thing about that? I like Corey. I mean, I really do. Seems like a genuine sort of guy, and I certainly appreciated his play. I will just, I know people have talked about this left and right. It is not the place for anybody in his position to do what he did.
Mm-hmm.
Period. Whether you're looking at it and you're seeing that it's right or wrong, it is not your place. You're not part of the officiating. You're not part of the crew. You're not part of anything other than broadcast.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not to, I'm not trying to take one side or the other here. I just thought it was, when he did it, I know why Tony. I finally, I only caught a portion of it, and then I had to go back and watch it again, and now I know why Tony Bennett went off, and he was right. I just thought to myself, I would, if anytime I've ever called games, I would never do that. It's not my place. Not my place. If I've been on an officiating crew, that's a whole different ballgame. If I'm part of that officiating crew in one way or another, yeah, that's my place to say something, but not as a broadcaster. Anyway,
Exactly.
So I'm sure he's heard more than his fair share of people giving him crap one way or the other, or whatever. Number 42 in the receiving votes category is Clemson, and just one vote, a homer vote, but some reasonable, recognition there because I mean Clemson's got some potential this season. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I think those wins over UAB and Davidson are decent. Again, again, I don't know what to think of them still. They're going to have a tough game on Sunday against Boise State. They play Alabama in the ACC SEC Challenge at the end of the month.
That's going to be a game.
That's going to be a tough one. Again, Alabama is, they play really good. They play a really exciting brand of basketball. They've put up over 100 points in both their games this year. So, Nate Oates likes to, chuck the ball. He likes that's what he likes out of his teams. So we'll see. And, they pride themselves and Clemson prides themselves in being a good defense. So we'll see. I mean, I'm always hesitant on Clemson because I just don't think Brad Brownell is that good of a coach. I feel like he doesn't get the most out of his teams, to be honest with you. And I guess I'm just very skeptical about it, but we'll see. I mean, we know we looked at it last year. They, on their good days, they could be just about anyone in the league, but on their worst days, they could lose to the worst Louisville team ever.
Yeah, and you don't want to do that.
That's for damn sure.
Anyway, that's a look at the men's side of the ACC and the AP men's top 25 as well. Over on the women's side, the top 25, again, South Carolina is now number one. Who would not have seen that coming? And number 2 is Iowa. Number 3, UCLA. Number 4, Utah. Number 5, Colorado. At number 9 is Virginia Tech, who just happened to lose to number 2. And Virginia Tech still leading, the Hokies still leading the ACC women in the polling, and with good reason. This is a really good team. I was really impressed by that game that they had. I didn't think it was going to be that close, to be frank about it, but man, and Georgia, if I weren't married.
I mean, I give the poll people credit for not dropping the Hokies a bunch. They were there throughout the game. It's not like they lost in the way, South Carolina blew out. I forget who it was. They blew out at the beginning, or Notre Dame. That's who it was. But and it was competitive throughout. And Caitlin Clark is one of the greatest women's basketball players of this generation. And she did what she does. She scores and lets you know about it.
Yeah, it's just that simple. But at the same time, the Hokies just would not go away, and that tells me a lot about where that team's going to be at the end of the season. So it certainly isn't going to be 9. That's for sure. Florida State.
And don't forget, they're coming up in a couple of weeks. They have a Final Four rematch against LSU on the 30th. Again, this the ACC SEC Challenge. So I'm really excited to see how the Hokies respond. Remember, LSU got it handed to them in their first game by Colorado, who, as you mentioned, is in the rankings now. They lost, what was it, 92-78. To them, and they've
huge loss.
Yeah, that was a really surprising result. But yeah, we'll see what the future holds for both of these teams. But between then and now, the Hokies have a couple bye games to get themselves through till then, and kind of build back up their confidence.
This is what you get for transferring from Louisville to LSU. Just saying. Number 12 Oh man, I'm going to so hear it this week. Number 12, Florida State doing pretty good job there. Solid performances so far. Nothing out of the ordinary.
Yeah, it was a big win over Tennessee, a 1 point win, 92-91 at a game where they shot 59% from three. Um, a couple players scored, north of 20 in that game. Just a really good shooting from both teams, and the Noles shot almost 47% from the field. But like I said, 13 to 22 from three. Just a huge win for them. We've talked about the Noles, being a consistent team, in the rankings and being a team that is a consistent tournament team, and going out and getting a win over a Tennessee team that was just outside the top 10. It says a lot about what this team is doing this year.
Yeah,
and I even say it, the ACC is going to be a gauntlet this year, and you're going to hear more about it here in the coming minutes.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong when I said nothing out of the ordinary. I wasn't diminishing that win by any stretch of the imagination. What I'm telling you is just what Will said, is that this is the ACC women. They're terrors. And it is just an incredible lineup of teams out of the ACC this season. And man, they are going to be kicking some butt and taking names. And this is going to be a fun season. And let's get into a fun season. Number 14, NC State. They were not, I'm not sure that they were even ranked before. But they knocked off UConn 92-81.
Yeah, I think they were like the first team out. If the math checks out, they were like the first team out, and then I know they made you very happy by getting that win. The plus on the other side, it's nice to see Paige Becker's back. You always want to see, the best be healthy, or you just want to see everyone be healthy, to be honest with you. But, it's best when, it's nice to see Paige Becker's back. Obviously, she's local to me, her from the Minneapolis area. But this game was all about Rivers for NC State, 33 points, 10 boards. That was a huge game. I believe she actually transferred in. She was part of the South Carolina class a couple of years ago, and then came into NC State. Wow, what a game though! Wow, just just showing up in the moment like that, just a huge win. Like you talked about, just huge, a big, getting a win over the number 2 team in the country at that time.
Our friend Isabella Agustinelli in Italy, who covers NCAA sports in Europe, for European readers, is a big fan of Gino, and she and I kind of, when we have a conversation and she joins us on the program, we have this back and forth about Gino. I've never really come right out and said, I really don't like Gino, but she really loves Gino. So, I'm a cordial host, and I allow her to have the Gino fandom going on there. And I was tempted to send her a message, but I said, nah, that wouldn't be right.
Again, trying to be the gentleman.
Yes, try very hard. Doesn't always work, folks, but try. Number 16, Notre Dame. After that blowover in Paris, where they lost to South Carolina substantially, I think they're sort of licking their wounds, recouping, and getting an idea of what they need to correct. This is still a very solid team at 16 in the 25. That I think that's a bit misleading to some degree. This is a team I think that you will see in the top 10 before the end of the season.
Yeah, it's just because they lost by 29 to South Carolina to open the season, as you mentioned, the game in Paris. This is the time of year when you see radical changes in rankings because of that. They obviously turned around a rebound and beat NJIT by 47 points. In their following game, they are back to play on Wednesday night. They take on Northwestern, that game on ACC Network. It will be interesting to see. That's a couple of games against Big Ten teams, Illinois after that. So we'll see how they rebound from that tough loss. But again, not concerned about things. Hannah Hidalgo, phenomenal player. She's still, she's only a freshman. She's going to be a star for this team. And I certainly believe, by the time the season's over, we're going to hear, Notre Dame's number called pretty as a higher seed, in the tournament.
I am impressed by Neil Ivey. It's very hard to follow somebody like Muffet McGraw, but I think Neil Ivey has done a phenomenal job. So,
yeah, it's always tough to be the one to follow up the legend, and it was kind of a rough start, but she has really rebounded and put this program back in a nice direction.
North Carolina comes in at number 17, and this is a program that, for those of you with a memory, been around for a while, North Carolina used to be absolutely the terror in women's basketball, and they're working their way back into being just that again. It's coming slowly, but at number 17, keep your eye on this team.
Yeah, again, only a couple games into the season, so you're not really getting a fair share. And they really haven't had a huge. They really haven't played. They had a close game against Davidson. They only won that game by 4, but through 2 games, they've been a pretty balanced scoring team. Deja Kelly leads them, averaging 16 points a game, but they also have 6 players averaging double figures. And this is the team that's it seems like they're a very balanced team, and that could be dangerous come as the season progresses, is you don't know who's going to, because you have to, potentially have to stop, 5 different people when you have them on the court like that.
Yeah. The only thing that I have a question mark about is their depth. And, I'm confident in that 5, but I'm also, I look at the next 5 and I'm going like, okay, we'll see where that takes us. At number 19, Louisville. Jeff Walton and his group, this is a little lower in the rankings than normally we see them. But the program is going through some adjustments. And again, I think this is a team, keep your eye on them.
Yeah. And small sample sizes, but they've had a couple nice wins already. Beat Cincinnati by 18 and DePaul by 7. Those are at least, Power 5, Power 6 teams. So it's not like they're feasting on nobodies. Just the standout for them is Olivia Cochran, averaging 14 points, 7.5 boards, and a couple of steals a game. She's been a pretty steady force, throughout her career at Louisville. And she, again, through a couple of games, she's picking up right where she left off. She had a big game against DePaul with 21 points. So she's, when you look at, some of the best front court players in the league, she's on that list.
Then we get into the receiving votes category, the team that I always like to keep an eye on. And a couple of years ago, I made a point of saying this is the team to keep an eye out for, and they were. At number 30 this season, it's Duke.
Yeah, again, 3-0. Not much there of substance, but we saw last year. This Duke team is kind of like the ladies' version of Virginia. They're going to smother you with defense and make you work for everything, and they've done that. Held Richmond to 53 and Coastal Carolina to 42 points. Carlos is preaching this defense, first mentality, and it's really paid dividends. They've done a good job of it so far. Again, they're 3-0, have a I mean, again, not much in terms of substance on the schedule, but that'll change soon. They have Stanford coming up on the 19th, which should be a really good game. Plus, they play South Carolina December 3rd.
Couple of good challenges there.
That's for sure.
It'll be interesting to see how that defense works with against Don Staley's offense.
Mm-hmm.
And
great matchup.
Oh, yes. Number 32, Miami. And, I've heard some rumblings about Miami's women's team, and I don't have enough really to go on there. So I'm sort of out in the dark here. So I need to do my homework.
Yeah, they're kind of retooling a little bit this year. Obviously, with some departures, the Cavanagh twins are gone, so they're trying to focus a lot and on being a more rounded team, and they've done that pretty well so far through a couple of games. Again, not a whole lot to the schedule yet. Again, that will change soon. They have the Mississippi State in the ACC SEC Challenge, plus they play Baylor December 16th. A team that, like I said, they've been a consistent tournament team for a few years now. Again, they're just they're just retooling a little bit like net right now, but I don't see why they can't make it.
Well, that's a look at ACC basketball, men's and women's, and we're early in the season, so. Yep. Getting a little taste of what's to come. A lot of great tournaments coming up too, man. As you're pointing out, some of the ACC SEC Challenge, which is coming up pretty soon. Also, a lot of the holiday tournaments, which are coming up. Some great matchups, some amazing stuff that's coming down the pike. So make sure that you catch some of those games. Don't forget that that's out there, the transition going from one sport into the other, football into basketball, they cross over. So, and we're going to try to talk about them as much as possible. So we'll keep you updated on that and a lot more. Make sure that you check us out at accnation.net. And on there, you can connect with us, link to our subscription page for the podcast, for YouTube, and to listen to ACC Nation Radio 24/7. So a lot of good stuff. Hey, until next time, cheers.
Cool.